It's a cold October Friday, 2004. Every other Friday, when my dad got paid, it became a cherished family tradition to head over to our family video to rent a stack of movies and games. It might seem small and kind of odd, but for me, it was the world. And that particular Friday, however, was said to be something truly special. Growing up with only a GameCube in my hands, I always longed for a PlayStation 2 but never got my wish. To my surprise, my dad decided to shake things up by renting a PS2 along with a treasure trove of games that my little brother and I had been eager to dive into. Titles like Resident Evil Outbreak, Destroy All Humans, and Silent Hill 4 were on our list. But as I scanned through the games, my heart sank when I realized that Silent Hill 3 wasn't amongst them. I'd always seen so much about it everywhere, and the craving to experience the horror classic felt like a cruel tease. But, to my surprise, fate had other plans. In that moment of disappointment, I discovered what would be one of my all-time favorite video games, Silent Hill 2. It turned out to be a thrilling twist in what would be an unforgettable evening that I still look back on fondly. This game had not only been one of the scariest games that I've ever played. I remember as an almost 10-year-old kid admiring its deep, thought-provoking story. Team Silent felt like it was the A24 studios of video games. Not only does every single enemy have a deep meaning to its design, they are all tied to the main character's thoughts, feelings, fears, and even urges. The level of design at the time was extremely impressive and haunting. Even the strange red squares that you save at were a heavily debated topic of just what it meant. Some saying it was a deep subconscious reflection on James as a character. Others have suggested that it's Silent Hill itself, letting James break through the fourth wall and reflect on himself, thus saving the game. A few even saying it's tied to the occult and alchemy. But that just goes to show just how much love and time and thought had been put into this game. The question is, did the remake do the same? To give you a quick game synopsis, the game follows a young man named James Sunderland who had just received a letter from his dead wife saying he wants him to come to Silent Hill to visit her in her special place, as she put it. As you may have predicted, the town is filled with horrifying monsters and bizarre people that don't seem to know just what's going on. Not only does all the dialogue have a David Lynch dreamlike quality to it, all of the voice actors in this game do an excellent job. Every interaction you face feels like a fever dream that you almost had an intentional alien-like feel to it. This is done extremely well, and throughout the game, you may even feel uneasy with some of the other characters. And that is completely intentional. As James meets these characters, he finds out more about himself and the crusade he was embarking, including one of the most notorious video game horror icons, Pyramid Head. Following the same rules as I mentioned earlier, Pyramid Head's design is entirely representative of James and his feeling of isolation and burden, even the subconscious feelings of wanting to be punished, which would be explained later in the game. As you progress through the game, you gain new weapons to your disposal. However, the combat in this game is a tad bit lacking. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, especially considering this is Blooper's first attempt at combat whatsoever. Another point to mention is the combat in the original game was almost non-existent and intentionally cumbersome by design to make the player feel a sense of helplessness. Towards the end of the game, I had more bullets than I could even use. However, I have yet to play on the harder difficulty to see if this would affect the resources. What I really did like, though, was just how much of a punch your weapons provide. Oftentimes completely knocking back your enemies with a devastating crushing weight of the pipe you get later on. Hell, even the shotgun had immense knockback power. The sound design in this game is phenomenal. Areas that already look extremely unsettling are often amplified by just how good the sound design is. Just making you wonder if that strange noise you heard behind you was an actual enemy sneaking up behind you, or just the environment playing tricks on you. Even having the infamous whispering in one of the apartments that would play in the original game. A small Easter egg that would only play very, very rarely. Once you progress through the story enough, you get to that, quote, special place your dead wife wrote about in the letter she sent you. Even learning about a videotape they had made together the last time they had been there. What was on the said tape would remind James just why he was in Silent Hill in the first place. Spoilers ahead.
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Promise you'll take me again, James?
James had murdered his wife. Being able to come home and spend time with them before she passed, James was unable to cope with her suffering, thus smothering her with a pillow. He is in Silent Hill not only to remember what he did, but to suffer for it, to pay for the horrible thing that he did. Every enemy James has faced is a manifestation of this. The acid-spitting monsters represent the, quote, cocoon that Mary wrote about in her letter, even coughing and spitting as she did with cancer. The nurses represent the hospital that James would go to. The mannequins are James' built-up sexual frustrations. And Pyramid Head, well, Pyramid Head is James. It's his feeling of guilt, isolation, and the punishment he feels he deserves. James isn't meant to be sympathized with. He did a horrible thing and couldn't come to grips with it. But I think it's on an even deeper level. I think this game tackles very sensitive topics. A topic that's often taboo and not discussed much. The weight of watching a loved one suffer and die from an illness or disease. So, with the spoiler out of the way and the story summarized, what are my thoughts on the remake? From my playthrough, this remake, I can safely say, is better than the original in many ways. The voice acting is better, the visuals are better, the level design is better. The combat, while not perfect, it's better. All of this adds up to a game that I genuinely think is a true masterpiece of storytelling. Do I think everything works? No. I think some of the puzzles are a tad bit outdated still. I think the game's length, for me personally, was a bit drug out. And I also think the game is extremely graphically demanding, which could be a pro or con how you see it. For me, unfortunately, my PC is a bit outdated, so I had struggled with a little bit of lag. But I do think this game, while flawed, is a masterpiece. And I truly think everyone should go play this game. It's not for everyone, but in my opinion, Silent Hill 2 is one of the greatest horror games ever made. The remake only polished and cleaned up a masterpiece to make it even better, and I can't recommend it enough.